This is taken from the official Village of Shortsville website, Village of Shortsville History, a brief sketch of history of Shortsville, New York. Yes, once part of a wilderness rolling hills, a sparkling stream with many fish and game in the forest, then came a settler from Pittstown, later known as Honia, New York. His name was Theophilus Short. Born in 1771 of old New England stock, he liked the spot, saw the stream, and then his dream. In 1804, he erected his first flour mill, the first to use the water power of the Canandaigua Outlet here. That same year, he built a sawmill on the east bank of the stream. His home, a long house east of the outlet, was the one and only house in what became known as Short's Mills, later Shortsville. Mills sprang up: a grist mill, whiskey distillery, woolen mill, carding mill, and 3 paper mills. A blast furnace was operated briefly after 1819, as well as a pottery. It is interesting to note that the paper on which the Mormon Bible was printed in 1830 was made at the Jones Mill on Water Street. E.B. Grandin printed 5,000 copies in Palmyra, for which Martin Harris mortgaged his farm for $3,000. A road was built from Canandaigua to Palmyra through Shortsville by a stock company in 1849, which was known as the Plank Road. There was a toll gate in operation at what was then Crane's Corner, south of the Booth Homestead, now owned by Elisha DeVries Jr. Shortsville Manchester Railroad workers. In 1844, the New York Central Railroad built a railroad from Auburn to Rochester. The Auburn Road, as it was known, had a station at Shortsville on the east side of the tracks, which was later rebuilt on the west side. In 1850, Hiram and Calvin Brown came to Shortsville, and in 1855 established the Empire Drill Company on part of the old Short property. It flourished for 50 years, then was sold to a syndicate, and the plant was dismantled and moved to Indiana. The buildings are now owned by the Papik Machine Company, which manufactures ensilage cutters and other farm equipment. Just south of the village limits was one of the largest spoke and wheel companies in the state at the time. It was established in 1889, and although it was located in Littleville, it was called the Shortsville Wheel Company. In the early 1890s, there was a Shortsville Cart Company as well. In 1889, Shortsville became an incorporated village and elected Oliver Titus as the first village president, as the mayor was then called. The population at that time was about 1,000, 7 or 8 times what it had been in 1850. By this time, the village had 4 churches. The Presbyterian, organized in 1860, was the oldest, but there was also a Catholic, the Methodist, and the Episcopal Church. Shortsville has had a schoolhouse since 1807, but after 1886, it had an excellent union school to be proud of. Up until 1880, there was no hotel in the village except a stagecoach house on Water Street known as the Central House. It burned in 1902 but was rebuilt and is now the home of the present postmaster, John Fierro. About this time, a large hotel was built by Jeanette and Newton Harrington. It was located where the Papik parking lot is now, and it was known for its fine food. Among other establishments in the village were the Cottage Hotel, the Mather Bank, the Buck Library, a barber shop, livery stable, cobbler shop, jewelry store, produce store, 2 meat markets, and a planning mill. The first issue of the Shortsville Enterprise came off press on February 3rd of 1883. It was published for many years by 3 generations of the Perry family. The luck of the Irish was not with Shortsville on St. Patrick's Day in 1902. At 1:15 in the morning, during a terrific ice storm, the entire business section of Main Street was destroyed by fire, which had started in the Cottage Hotel. It took about 2 years to rebuild all of the structures, but the stores were open for business once again. At the start of World War I in 1917, all the towns were working to sell Liberty bonds, and the school children were great salespeople. All sorts of inducements were offered by our government, and one was that of any village of a certain size which could sell a certain amount of bonds within a given period of time was given the privilege of naming a ship. Shortsville made it, and the SS Shortsville was put into commission. Service carrying supplies to our troops in Europe. On one return trip from Sweden to America, a strange thing happened. One day, out of port, 2 children appeared on deck stowaways. A 15-year-old girl and a 13-year-old brother were taken at once to Captain Cook's quarters, where after their stories were heard, were treated as guests for the remainder of the voyage. A few days after arrival in the United States, an uncle from Rhode Island came to claim them. I am not sure. I have absolutely no idea what that has to do with anything, but it's on the website. Today, Shortsville is a busy, happy village with many fine homes and tree-lined streets. Its population, just over 1,500, enjoys the advantage of a fine central school system and a local telephone company, both shared by the other members of the Twin Cities, the village of Manchester. Both were named after the famed orator of the Seneca Indians, Red Jacket. It has 4 important industries: the Papik Machine Company, Silver Floss Food Division of Kurtz, Burns, the Warwick Corporation, and just outside the village, Pioneer Thresher Incorporated. Among its many other assets are a well-equipped and capable volunteer fire department, an ambulance team, effective police protection, a modern post office and village hall, a newly remodeled bank, a weekly newspaper, railroad freight services, 2 churches, and several social and civic organizations. Not the least among its assets are its parks. Bud Park provides space and facilities for many activities throughout the year, and across Water Street from it is the new Jones Blunt Park, which was given to the village by a descendant of the owners of the old Jones paper mill. This park is still being laid out, but when finished, it will be a beautiful addition to the village as it lies along the banks of the Canandaigua Outlet, the same stream which lured our first settler, whose name lives on in the village he founded so many years ago. Now, this was written in April of 1971, so I can only imagine 54 years later what has changed, but that's from the official site.